Hey everybody, what's up and welcome back to the Starcraft 2 Own Shack. It's David here bringing you another Master League Quest episode. I do apologize for not getting one out last week. Of course, as I said in a couple episodes ago, school does come first, and sadly that was an absolutely crazy time, so I did not have time to release one. However, this week is somewhat free, so there's definitely a chance I will get another one out for you this week as well as this. Now, Terran versus Protoss, as you saw, is going to be the matchup today, and of course, as usual, mech is going to be the strategy of choice. Now, the builder I'm going to be using here for this game is Avalos. In other words, it's going to be that nice 2 barracks, pure marine into command center build. Now, the reason I'm going for this one over my standard Reaper expand build is that I find that on this particular map, it's quite difficult to take that expansion because of how wide open it is, unless you have a ton of Marines. And going for the 2 barracks opening instead of the Reaper opening does allow you to get down there a little bit faster. It's also much safer, of course, against, you know, all-in-ish type builds such as 4 gates and, you know, things like that. So it does, of course, mean that you have less scouting information, but with a good initial scout and some follow-up scouting, it's not too big of a deal. So, as always, going to be sending that scout out at 14 supply. That's my standard, yeah, pretty much, that's my standard time to send a scout out on a 1v1 map. Now, sometimes I actually do send that out at 14 supply on 4-player maps as well, but it all depends basically on how much distance I have to travel. The only map I think that I won't send it out at 14 would probably be something like, you know, Tal'Darim Altar. The problem, of course, there is that I skipped that map. It's on my veto list, so don't really have to deal with that. And obviously, in case you're wondering, the reason that is on my veto list is that it's a terrible map for mech. It's absolutely horrible, especially versus Protoss. It's just not good at all. It's way too wide open. So this map, however, it's quite nice for mech, I must say. It just has a lot of narrow crevices. Obviously, the middle is quite nice to take with a planetary fortress to, you know, fall back on with your mech. And that's basically going to be my plan here, just to take that 3rd base with nice upgrades and then push at his 3rd. So, as you can see, the build is pretty much straightforward here. It's mineral only until you get about 400 minerals, at which point you'll throw down that command center, then 2 gas immediately after. Also notice, this is pretty important right here, I have saved my initial SCV scout after seeing that he only has 1 gas. Now, I forgot to mention this, but I was actually checking the chrono boost that he had on his Nexus, and he was stockpiling quite a bit. So that makes me a little bit nervous about all-ins coming, and that's why I'm going to be a little bit more cautious here and not go down the ramp as soon as I normally would. Now, I do bungle this a tiny bit. As you can see, I had Marines building, and that denied the gas that I needed, or rather, the minerals I needed to make those gas geysers, so I'm forced to cancel those Marines and then put them down. So those are a little bit late, which means that siege tech is going to be later than it, you know, could have been. And that's pretty huge, to be honest. Siege mode is so important to get against many of these early gateway unit rushes, because siege mode just absolutely devastates gateway units. So, now that I do have those gases up, I should be getting a factory pretty soon. Obviously, with the Reaper expand, the factory would have already been building at this point. And here's where that scout thing is going to come into play that I was mentioning before I got sidetracked. Basically, because I saw that chrono boost, I'm going to have to check for an expansion. And because I've saved my initial scout up there in the top left, you see him patrolling around, I can send him right in, as I'm doing right now, and just check for that expansion. Typically, if Protoss has not expanded by the 6-minute mark, you know he's going to be doing some kind of pressure build or an all-in. So that's, you know, that's my thought process there. And as you can see, I see that he does not have a nexus there, and because of that, I know that I can go up the ramp, because he's obviously doing pressure, so he's not going to have units here. And I see, alright, looks like it's just a standard 3-gate pressure. The one thing I should have also done is check how many gases he had. And because of the 3-gate pressure, I will just put a bunker down right there to block the inevitable rush. And continue to make these nice... Oh my goodness, wow. The factory should have just gone right onto that tech lab. Sadly, it wanted to go mine minerals, unfortunately. And I will be getting siege tech immediately as well as that first siege tank. With the siege tank out, you can defend pretty much any early rush. I'll also be putting that engineering bay down, just, you know, for safety after this rush is done. And as you can see, with that bunker up, finishes just in time. I'm easily able to repel this. Now, this is largely due to the fact that I have so many Marines from the early 2 barracks opening. With the Reaper rush, you're not going to have all these extra Marines, but you will have tanks out when this occurs. So either way, you're pretty safe. It's just personal preference if you do want those Marines or not. So unfortunately, you know, he does manage to kill that bunker before I can salvage, but that's no problem. He lost a lot of units there to just kill one bunker. And now, because of that, I can safely, you know, just float down my orbital command after dropping a mule and take my first expansion. Siege tech should also be finishing up pretty soon here. So extra siege tanks coming out, and you know what? I was feeling a little bit daring this game, so I thought, you know what, alright. I've been doing this usual style where I just go for a double armory after this sort of expansion, but today I want to put on some pressure. I want to get aggressive. So what I will be doing is the standard 3 factory timing push off of 2 base. I have a strategy video for this, so go check it out. And I'm going to be doing that here. Now, I do botch it a tiny bit. You're supposed to go with, how many is it? I think it's, yes, 5 siege tanks. Now, as you can see, my factory is idle. So I'm going to have 1 less siege tank than I should. And that's a huge mistake. I should have been building these siege tanks the whole way through. But, alas, poor Yorick, I was not. And therefore, well, you know, it's just not going to be as effective as it could be. I've also walled off that back entrance with those depots. That is absolutely important. And going for that Infernal Preigniter, obviously, to get those Hellions doing some pretty decent damage against Zealots and Sentries. I'm also scouting around with that SCV, trying to find, you know, hidden pylons and stuff like that. If you can kill his hidden pylons while you push out, it's just, I can't even explain how important that is, because what that does is it prevents him from warping in a bunch of stuff at your main while you're pushing. And trust me, having stuff warped in by your main is just terrible when you're doing a push, because obviously with a mech army you simply can't defend. They just kill everything that comes with the factories immediately. And so I have a nice amount of minerals right there ready immediately to build those Hellions, and Infernal Preigniter should be finishing up just in time for this rush. Another thing I do like about the 2 barracks play is that it sets up your ghosts a bit better. With 2 barracks, you can throw down 2 tech labs and double pump ghosts immediately. It's just not as cumbersome as throwing up that additional barracks. It just speeds up the ghost production. And trust me, when you're going for a build like this, the best response your Protoss opponent has is Immortals. So you will need those ghosts. I mean, there's no bones about it. Now, something that kind of made me go for this particular rush here is that he did lose quite a few units during that initial pressure, that 3-gate pressure he did against me. So obviously, as those 3 armories go up, by the way, or the 2 armories, that means he'll have less units to stop this. Now, as you can see, he's left with only gateway units right now, and obviously against gateway units, your siege tanks are going to be extremely potent. Unfortunately, right here, I do get force fielded, but with siege mode, that's no problem. So, as you can see, I am doing this probably a different way than some of you might be used to. Against gateway units, I do not siege my tanks. I simply leave them unsieged until I get force fielded, and that's when I siege up the tanks. So, right here, I will not be sieging them up until the force fields come down. I also try and micro away the tanks that were being target fired. And now with these couple of SCVs, I can get some static defense up here to make this more of a hard contain. The goal here is sort of to kill him, but you know, this rush has failed so many times for me that I'm much less greedy. And this is kind of the reason why. With force fields, they can actually kill a lot of your smaller units because your siege tank count simply isn't that high right now, as it usually is when you go for a rush like this off 3 bases, for instance. And I do have that expansion up while I'm doing this, so you know, it's not all in at all. I'm just getting prepared for, you know, a nice sort of, you know, it's a pressure to expend. That's what it is. Also be harassing with the Hellions, and I get a little bit greedy here, I think. Yeah, I'm going to go for that sentry, and boom! Force fields, trap all those Hellions, and so I figure those guys are dead. Let's try and get some scouting information. I see a Twilight Council, and I use that. That is my chance to just simply get the heck out of there. And, well, like I said, this does not always go as planned. And, well, the main point here with this particular rush, this timing push, is that you just don't want to lose your siege tanks. If you can escape with your siege tanks, you'll be absolutely fine. So I feel pretty good right now. I'm in a good spot, but he is a massive army, absolutely gigantic. And the fact of the matter is, with those immortals, I cannot stand up to that army without this depot wall. Excuse me. So unfortunately, I will resort to putting down all these depots. I know I've gotten flack for this, but right now I simply don't have the resources to make enough units to stop this, so I need some kind of way to spend all those extra minerals I'd accumulated. And of course those depots will be useful, you know, in the late game. Now, more factories coming up with the starport. I feel like, yeah, I don't know. This is that interesting part in mech where you just don't know what to do exactly. You basically have a couple options once you're done that sort of timing push, pressure contain, whatever you want to call it. You can go for the starports if he's going for Colossi. You can go for the Ghosts if he's going for Immortals. And you can, of course, go for some kind of crazy mass factory play. But in this case, I didn't have enough scouting intel to sort of see what he was doing. So I kind of make a guess, go for one starport and one Ghost Academy. Typically, if I saw Colossi, I'd immediately just go for 2 starports. But I've not seen that. I will see that he's expanding though, and that's quite valuable information. So, because he is expanding, I know that he's probably going to be going for the Colossi. It's just seems to be the most common opener, and as you can see, I've even started saving scans on my orbital. This is just for extra scouting later. I definitely could have done more mule dropping early game, but right now the thing is, as you can see, my resources are starting to become extremely mineral heavy with less gas. Macro's obviously not the best either at this point. Yeah, I think that with mech, once my macro just gets a bit better and I'm able to, you know, very comfortably position my units correctly and build them at the same time, I will be able to make this a much more viable strategy. So there go the scans. Just got to see what his army composition is. I see that he's going for a lot of Stalkers and Immortals with some good upgrades. And that means I can stop Viking production. I did make those 2 Vikings simply to kill that Warp Prism. Because if you kill the Warp Prism, typically he won't be able to make it again. He obviously can if he wants to, but it's going to be less of his robotics units. In this case, he's going for the Immortals. Like I said earlier, I have 2 barracks, so I can double pump the Ghosts, and that's going to be pretty huge against an Immortal build. If you just get about 6 to 7 Ghosts and mass EMP when the engagement occurs, I don't care what their composition is, they are just going to get demolished. That is the power of mech in this matchup. It's all about the Ghosts. It's honestly more the power of Ghost than the power of mech, but you know, that can be debated. So I'll be putting a planetary down there, and I will drop the mules at the gold. Obviously it's the most efficient place to do so. And I'll need those geysers as well. Another thing that I should have done by this point, but sadly did not do, is tear down those rocks leading to my possible 4th base. You know, the ones right outside your natural. If you tear those down early, then you don't have to commit units down there to kill them later. And it just makes taking that 4th base a lot more convenient. So it's definitely something I think I should have done, and I will incorporate in future games played on this map. Now with my extra gas, I will be getting that +3 attack for my vehicles. I have 2-2 right now, and that's really powerful, by the way. If you ever want to do a nice timing push, 2-2 is a great time to do it typically. I'll also be getting a planetary fortress wall there. so they can't do the old runaround. And I'm pretty sure I saw that warp prism on the mini-map, but yeah, I definitely did. So I'll be sending those Vikings over to try and kill this. A Thor pops out, and I will be, you know, considering doing that, but then I realized I don't want to lose that Thor. These are all Zealots, might as well send my Hellions in. Excuse me, I'm sorry guys. I just need a cough. Oh. So, as you can see, I have started the Thor production. Oh, I really do apologize for this. And my main plan was to get to that 170 supply mark and then max out with the Thors, as was suggested on a previous Masterly Quest episode. And that has been working really well. I think that's an absolutely fantastic strategy, because it just allows you to replace those really fragile Hellions with such a beefy unit. I mean, the HP to supply ratio of a Thor is just a lot better. I think Hellion Hellion is 2 supply and only 90 HP, so sadly that's 45 HP per supply, whereas Thor, it's 40 divided by 6, so you get, or sorry, 400 over 60. Oh my gosh, it's way too late to be doing math. But the point is, it's a better ratio. It can stand up a lot better to those Colossi, so it's definitely a good idea. And as you can see, I have, it looks like 6 ghosts, so I'm just going to EMP the absolute tar out of those units. And with my siege line, the Immortals become no threat whatsoever, and I destroy that army. Unfortunately, I did lose all my ghosts, however, and that, I have to say, he did a wonderful job of storming those ghosts. So that's quite devastating, to be honest. A better micro right there would have been to simply pull the ghosts back after EMPing, so shift Q them backwards. Sadly, I didn't do it, and that means that I now have no way to sort of push up further, because his Immortals right now are regaining a lot of their shields, and when they have those shields, man, they can just absolutely walk all over your army. So I'm going to just be trying to kill this base, and then I'll, you know, sort of see what I can do from there. I'll hold this position, because I know with those 2 planetaries down by my 3rd base, he will not be able to do a runaround strategy. It's just very cost inefficient. So he's going to be going once more. This time, as you can see, the Ghost Micro was not the best. A lot of hits were wasted on those Immortals, and of course, I'll be taking this time to go ahead and take that 4th base. But with the 2 barracks, I am easily able to replenish those ghosts faster than I would be with 1. So, once again, just an overall good strategy. Also, I'm keeping the bases even, which is very important. I feel like denying a 3rd base is very, very powerful. You know what? I have to say, in Terran vs. Zerg, denying a Zerg base is seen as, you know, quite an awesome thing to do. And I feel like maybe playing this matchup similar to Terran vs. Zerg in that respect, trying to deny bases as Protoss takes them, might be a better way to sort of go about doing mech. So, something I might think about in the future. And as I said earlier, this is one of those reasons why you want to take those rocks out early, because now, unfortunately, I've got to commit 4 siege tanks down there to kill him really fast, and that means that I'm quite vulnerable, so I'll have those ghosts out in the open at first, just in case he comes in for an attack. I'm also repairing my siege tanks. Gotta, you know, you invested so much in these mech units that just doesn't make sense not to protect your investment and repair. So with 5 ghosts, really my power units, I'm going to easily be able to muscle down his army if he decides to attack move in there again. I'll also be putting 1 siege tank down at that newly taken 4th base for the main purpose of stopping Dark Templar from running down there and killing me. I find that that's one of the hardest things to deal with when you have, you know, Planetary Fortress trying to build. It's Dark Templar or just random, you know, Zealot Warpins just killing your stuff. So now I'm going to be throwing down mass scans. This is simply to see if he's going for a carrier tech. Obviously, as I've said many times before, if he's going for carriers, you need to know very soon so you have enough starports to deal with that. And unfortunately, in this particular game, I only went for 1 starport since he was so immortal heavy for so long. So that's going to be something important that I do. Just got to scout for those carriers. Now, committing more SCVs to those refineries. It's a wonderful thing. And I was starting to feel suspicious right now based on how small his army was, so I did throw down 3 extra starports just in case. Really no harm in doing that, especially when you're running a huge bank of minerals and gas. Just does not make sense to not invest in those extra production facilities. Factories and starports alike. You need to replenish both, both your sky and ground army really fast. Also, taking that 5th base might not be a bad idea, as well as sacking a few SCVs. I'm definitely a little bit heavy on SCVs here, so yeah, that's probably not the greatest. Could definitely go for a few more Thors and siege tanks at this point. So he has retaken, as you can see, his gold base. So my main objective is now going to be to take that down. And a scan does reveal the starports, but with all these Thors and those extra, sorry, I revealed the Stargates, but with my starports, I'll be able to handle that if it should happen. Now, this presents a really nice timing for me, actually, because his army's so small since he invested in all these Stargate units that I'm able to push in here and lose all my army. It's a great strategy, guys. Just try this sometimes. Yeah, this is basically a classic move of a late siege. A late siege into just getting raffle stomped by zealots is just the easiest way to lose this. It's one of the reasons why mech is so hard to pull off. You need to siege up faster than that. Absolutely terrible moves by me. I do get his base, but at a huge cost. As you can see, I'm just getting pounded right now. I'm going to try and bring these Thors up, but then when I see the Immortals, I think, man, I'm not going to screw around with that. This presented a really nice timing for him to actually come in and raffle stomp me, but he was being a little bit conservative here, and one of his major problems was that he had no more stalkers. So I'm thinking right now, this guy's got mass colossi supported by immortals and zealots. I can just build a bunch of Vikings and just kill them. So that's what I'm going to be doing here, and I have to say it's what's going to save me right now, because my reinforcements arrive just in time that I can, salvage somewhat of a foothold on this 3rd base location. And with the Vikings coming up, wait, what the heck? Where are those Vikings? There they are. Yeah, with the Vikings coming up, I can push back his very stalker-light army. Quite a mistake by him, not having enough stalkers with his army. And it's something that you can find them doing quite a bit. I mean, look at that. To be quite frank, I think that at this point he was running out of resources, because he took that 3rd base a lot sooner than I did. And I've denied his gold multiple times, so yeah. Anyway, he's going to be coming here once again. Got to EMP those Immortals. There's my clutch EMP on the Immortals. Go in with the Vikings and kill those Colossi. You know what? The Thors on the ground, as you can see, tank so much damage. Sadly, they were not in front of the siege tanks, what they should have been. But they tank so much damage that it just allows me to plow through his army, his ground army. So, once again, thank you so much for the tips. Really appreciate all the feedback you guys give me. And that Thor tip was one of the best I've ever received. It's just paying off huge dividends in this game, at least. So I'll be sacking the rest of the Vikings to get that. I'm pretty sure that I managed to take that out, but you never know for sure, 100%. So now it's getting to that point in the game where I'm kind of running out of money. My economy's not the most solid. Trying to secure that additional base over there, but with that proxy pylon, he's going to be able to warp in. So I'll be sending my army over there to deal with that. As you can see, he's now relying on these very low-tech units. By killing all those high-tech units, your mech army gains a very sizable advantage with its upgrades against ground forces. So coming in here, is going to easily allow me to retake that base. So at this point, my main goal is to try and secure that base, get enough of a mech army, up and running, that I can go and end this travesty of a game. Because as you can see, it's been quite wild. With my sensor tower, I see him coming over there to try and, do some damage at my main / 3rd base area. So I'll be sending in units to try and deal with that. With those Thors there, there's quite a number. I'll also be calling down a bunch of mules, and he's forced to back out when the siege tanks arrive. They just deal damage to stalkers unbelievably quickly. But Obviously, with this base morphing into a planetary, it's still very vulnerable. And with that proxy pylon there, I mean, you can tell he's very broke right now. He doesn't have enough money to warp in. But when he does, he's going to be able to do some damage. And there he goes, warping in those zealots. So, I'll be just repairing that. He's got a lot of stalkers, but I've got a lot of tanks. So I can definitely beat this army head on. And that's my basic plan here. Just going to try and get in there. No need to siege the tanks against ground units, as I've said before, especially with those Thors. And I'll be able to take out a lot of the zealots here, since they can't blink away, unlike those stalkers. Now, at this point in the game, I realized I just got a huge boost of units, tons of siege tanks, and you know what? I felt right now, at this point, that I had a nice little timing to just go and kill him. So I figured, you know what? Let's do it. Let's run this. Let's try and kill him right now. He doesn't have a gold base as far as I know. Nope, he does not. And that means he's got absolutely no income, unless he managed to sneak an expansion, which I do not think he did. And he doesn't have those Archons up in time, so I am able to simply walk up right in here. I try and dodge the storms as much as I can, do some sick tank micro, targeting the Archons first. And like I said, I think that he just ran out of money this game, and so he didn't have enough units to defend this. So I'm able to walk up in there with my tanks. Once they're sieged up, I have such a strong foothold that he's forced to GG out of the game. Honestly, a really enjoyable game, I felt. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it. It was definitely a blast to play. I just love playing mechs so much in this matchup that it's just awesome. I have to admit though, in Terra vs. Zerg, I do somewhat prefer the Marine tank style, as it is closer to what was played in Brood War. But, as always, I hope you enjoyed the cast. Comments are welcome, suggestions, all that good stuff. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again for another daily dose of ownage.